into the shadows on Pop Talk Radio's horror broadcast, where screams linger and fears are vast. If you're brave, lend an ear to the chilling tales we steer. Join us, night spirits, for Halloween updates premiere.
Welcome in to what will be starting off as our official Halloween Horror Nights season. We're recording on Sunday, August 25th. It is the Sunday before the official kickoff of 2024 Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando. This is Bill of Park Talk Radio, your premier theme park podcast covering all around the world, but with a focus on Central Florida. Follow us on our socials at Park Talk Radio on all your different pieces: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all those ones, of course. Facebook. Join the group, like the page. You can also listen to us and subscribe on all your podcast platforms at Park Talk Radio. Go ahead, subscribe, listen, engage. We love your ratings. We love your feedback. Emails, parktalkradio@gmail.com, and phone number for your text and voicemails. Go ahead, record yourself going through a haunted house when this season kicks off. 407-490-2220. We have a packed episode, and with a little technical issues preceding this, we're finally here, we're finally recording, and we have our co-host, my good friend Dave. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm just sitting here having a drink out of my Walking Dead Tervis, anticipating the house for this year. Really looking forward to it.
You just did not get enough of Walking Dead.
No, 6 years,
2012
5 years
to 15?
2016.
22, 23, 24, 25, 26. 5 years.
5 years of Walking Dead was not enough.
Not enough. Well, thankfully, we're not talking about that today. We are focused on Horror Nights, and we're going to get to that in a moment. And unfortunately, we were unable, due to those mentioned technical issues, to not have Dr. Jimmy the Hat with us, joining us. Apologies again to you, Dr. Jimmy. We will have you on in the future. We'll be talking some Horror Nights shop with him. First off,
it sucks. He is a genius and knows a lot about the event.
Do you know his YouTube channel offhand, Dave?
Yes, Docimo.
Docimo. Can you spell that?
Yes, let me spell that out for you. That way you can go check it out.
He has some great recipes
YouTube is
on there for cocktails.
DOCKIMO, and he has done many great YouTube videos of Horror Nights history and some great April Fools videos as well.
Yes, and he is a wealth of knowledge. Dave and I have both known the doctor many, many years, as long as we've known each other, really. And I've always enjoyed. I don't know if he does them anymore, but he had, for each house, he would create a custom cocktail for each one, and they're very.
He's
good.
A bit behind on them, but yeah, he still does it, but he's a bit behind.
So we'll have Dr. Jimmy and a few more of our friends guesting on the show who have a wealth of Horror Nights knowledge, both in front of the stage and backstage. Maybe some of them have worked the event before, and they are as incorporated and passionate about it as Dave and I. First things first, you may have seen on our social feed over the weekend that I was up in Pennsylvania for a quick visit, and I stopped over at Hershey Park, one of the theme parks I had growing up. Did you make your way over to that part of the state when you were up in Pitt?
No, I did not. I've never been to Hershey Park, but I've always wanted to go. So
an absolute joy to go to, founded, of course, by Milton Hershey, originally a small park and hangout area that Mr. Hershey created to have his employees go and relax during their time off before or after work. So they would always be on there, and then he started adding things of, well, if you're going to be here, might as well spend some money, and so on and so forth, until today when we have the theme park Hershey Park, a beautiful regional park that has been built into the countryside right down the road from the legitimate Hershey factory. I've always enjoyed when I went to visit, when we're driving, my parents would say, put that roll on the windows. You can smell the chocolate they're making for the day. And that is the absolute truth. Especially when you're driving through the downtown and the factory's cranking, chocolate would permeate into the car and you would just get a nice big whiff. And then for all the street lights, there'd be Hershey Kisses instead of a plain old boring one.
You know, when you were there, did you go to the main store and ride the free?
Oh, I do it every time.
Chocolate tour ride.
That place opens up an hour before.
Gives me very much Living with the Land vibes, except for chocolate instead of plants.
Chocolate. It's super good. You can check out all that. It was posted on the story. Content creator Brennan is going to be posting reels of the videos I've taken. Hershey Park is mostly known these days for the roller coasters. They had last year a RMC, Rocky Mountain Coaster, remake of their Wildcat, which we've seen before also with Iron Gwazi down here in Tampa. And this thing was killer. Wildcat's Revenge, highly recommend, as with all the coasters. They got some older, mid-2000s made Intamins. They have a couple of their other ones. They have an Arrow, one of those old steel tubular coasters. Pretty shaky. That one, the Arrow coaster, was from the 70s. But absolute joy. It was like the mid-80s all day. Nice little. You're a little higher elevated, not so much, mountain wise, but you're a little higher than Florida. It's not swamp. It did get a little hot in the afternoon, and man, oh man, they were running a summer ticket deal right now, as it's the end of the summer sale before they transition into their horror event, which is Dark Nights at Hershey Park. That begins Friday the 13th, as do a lot of the regional park stuff this year. Mm-hmm. It's a great time to start it, of course. Not nearly as early as August 30th, like Hard Nights Orlando, but still fun. They're going to have 5 houses. I took a few photos. I could see a bit of their construction, and they're a regional guy. They're not like the big boys or the big theme parks. Their haunted houses are built into pre-existing buildings, or really some catering pavilions where the walls are up and there's no AC.
Yeah, I would. I think that would be a fun event to go to. The one house this year that I heard they were having that I would be really excited for was lactose intolerant, the Dairyman.
Is he lactose intolerant, or does he?
No, you are, and he's trying to force you.
He's
to eat
about
dairy.
to make you eat dairy.
He's trying to make you eat milk chocolate.
I didn't see that one on the list here.
Oh, I must be mistaken then.
I have The Descent, Catacombs of Decay, Haunted Coal Mine, Curse of the Tommyknockers.
Oh.
Creatures Uncaged, Ante-Mortem's Abattoir, and Twisted Carnival. So 5 houses this year for them, which is a sizable showing for Hershey, which they don't have sound stages. They don't have a whole lot of room. The houses I saw that were close to the main guest pathways were, again, in those unused pavilions or catering areas.
It gives very much a Six Flags Fright Fest vibe.
Yeah, but not a single IP here. Not leaning or paying out for the IP to boost their showing. And I believe my dad mentioned that it's not that much to go if you're only going for the evening. If you're there as a day guest and you want to hit the houses at the night, it's only like $10 or $20 extra.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really good. And I may have mentioned, or probably not, since we weren't doing the show yet when I went last year to California and went to Six Flags Magic Mountain. You can go and stay for the entire evening during the haunted houses are open. The scare zones are free to get into. You had to pay to go into the houses. Correct. Yeah. So, I mean, There's some great different takes and approaches to doing this. When you have 10 houses and that much production value, you have to charge that extra price to be admitted, such as Universal does. It's all great to see. Again, I had an excellent time at Hershey Park. Fully recommend it. It did get a little hot and then super crowded because of their end of the summer ticket deal. If you can get out there, very exciting. They have, I believe, I just started using the Log Ride app, and you can follow the show, follow us on there at Park Talk Radio, of course, and see what I'm riding since I'm the one running that one. But it said they have 61 attractions there. that you can do. Yeah. Which is way more than most places. And
that's very good for a regional park.
Over 10 coasters alone.
Mm-hmm. Wow. They, if I'm not mistaken, they do have a lot of generic flat rides too, though, right?
Yeah, they have a lot of those carnival ones, a scrambler. I went on this thing called Music Express, which is a circular ride that goes up and some over humps, and there's playing music as it spins fast. They have 2 different carousels. But nonetheless, still, great park, great food, of course. They have a huge restaurant called the Chocolatier. Very similar vibe to Toothsome you find at Universal Orlando or Hollywood. A lot of chocolate-infused things. Their full cocktail menu. Everything is chocolate, candy. They did have a Jolly Rancher-infused tequila, though.
Oh.
Yeah, it sounded pretty good.
Sounds interesting.
I did not imbibe into that particular, but it sounded really good. And they really, I mean, I went 2 years ago in 2022 with the Chocolatier. I actually stayed at the Hershey Hotel, which, holy shit, you want to talk about a classy joint, man. That is the spot. And you get a bunch of great perks with that as well.
How are the crowds? Were you able to get everything done in one day, or
we got all the coasters done? We did get there half an hour before Chocolate World opened at 9, so we got there at 8:30, and then the park opens at 10, and the park was open from 10 to 10. We ended up leaving around 4:30. We got all the coasters done, and like the monorail. They do have a monorail. It's a ride, not a transportation one, but it's a ride through the park. And a couple other small ones had a chance to get lunch and a few drinks. So from 8:30 till about 4:30, we got all the coasters, lunch, and a couple smaller flat rides in. Crowds weren't crazy, but at that 3 o'clock mark, they just started rolling in. When you have a park that's open from 10 to 10, and it's and the regional ones especially, people start rolling in later in the afternoon. And the other thing I do want to mention, real quick before closing up the visit, is also included with the one ticket price. And I think the ticket was $60 or $70 to go to Hershey. You not only get into the park and get to go to Chocolate World for included with that ticket price, which has the Omni Mover ride through the chocolate making process, but you also get to go into Zoo America, which is a full 100+ acre zoo included with your ticket. You also get to go to the Hershey Water Park included with your ticket. So for about $70, you get 3 parks worth of visit.
Damn, that's pretty good.
It is pretty good. So a lot of people came in the afternoon, hit the water park, and get acclimated, and then you can hang out, still grab some more drinks, which they partner with a brewery, which is actually right down the road from the theme park called Trogs. Excellent brewery. They have the beer in the park. They actually have an exclusive beer made for Hershey, like they're Universal, called the Super Duper Juicer, which is a juicy IPA, and they based off the roller coaster Super Duper Looper. It's pretty good.
I saw you post that.
I did have that. It was
looked good. You made me jealous.
So hopefully, if you are thinking about or contemplating a Northeast trip, please make sure Hershey's on there, and then Knoebels, which is another great regional park, the Phoenix wooden coaster, true wooden style coaster, consistently wins, top wooden coaster in the country, if not the world. And it alternates with another one. Also very good. I believe Knoebels still operates off the ticket system where you buy so many tickets per ride, unless it's a wristband Wednesday.
Yes, they do. They do operate off the ticket system.
Yeah, Pennsylvania is great for those regional parks. The whole Northeast is super great. And if you're trying to get your coaster credits or just check out some new rides and new places you've never been, that's a stop I would highly recommend. You can also hit Williamsburg, Knockout, Kings Dominion, and Busch Gardens Williamsburg all at the same time. So it was a great weekend. I wish I got to stay longer. Wish I got to stay at Hotel Hershey again. Super, super great time. Don't want to be rude, Dave. Did you have any park visits over the weekend? Just to make sure.
No, just went to Bath and Body Works and went to Bath and Body Works and bought the Stranger Things candles. So That's about it.
Okay. Well, that ties into harness. We had Stranger Things, what, 2 years ago now? Last year? 2 years ago?
No, last year we had
We had
Stranger Things 4.
Okay. Yeah, ties right in. And tonight's topic, main topic tonight, as Halloween Horror Nights starts this Friday the 30th, and is Halloween Horror Nights 2024, or Halloween Horror Nights 33, we wanted to talk about some icons. And Dave and I want to specialize and talk about some specific pieces of the Horror Nights lore, the canonical pieces of it, and what is, isn't, or could be an icon. As there's been some conversation and discussion on, is this an icon? Is it a mascot? Is it an iconic character? What does it mean to you for an icon to exist? What does it mean to be an icon? And what we talk about tonight, are these icons of the Horror Nights event, or is it a mascot or something else you would label it? So
I think that's something we're really going to get more in depth on as this episode goes on, because there's a lot of argument over what an icon is and who is in that category for the event. So,
well, Dave, do you want to start with what an icon means to you first, or do you want to jump in and just start talking year by year?
So,
we can go either way.
Let's go year by year, and then we'll kind of point out as we go. Decide at the end what defines an icon.
Okay. All right. Well, so I have the list of every year in front of me, with each year with what may or may not be considered an icon, and then let's talk about them and then decide or give our opinion. If they are. What's the first year you think there's an icon? Let's start. Let's actually start there.
So the difference is, the first year I think there's an icon and the first year that there was technically an icon are two different things. Yeah. Because the first year that there was an icon, quote unquote, was Fright Nights in 1991. And that was Beetlejuice was the alleged icon for the event. And that being said, this is before Horror Nights had to worry about being sued over using intellectual properties and stuff like that. Plus, Beetlejuice was already a part of their parks
still
at that
is
time.
Today, in a very limited capacity, but he's still there.
But which is crazy because they don't have to get permission for they still use the walk around character, but then they had to get special permission for the house back in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
But the first icon for Horror Nights, Fright Nights in 1991. At this event, they only had one haunted house. It was more of an amalgamation of shows, and this event was designed as a Halloween party, not as a scary event.
And that's exactly what it said on the marketing.
What's that?
It's the biggest Halloween party ever, or something to that extent, for Fright Nights.
Yeah. It was designed as a Halloween party. There were more shows and stuff than there were haunted attractions. There was only one haunted attraction. So, Beetlejuice was the spokesperson for the event that year, but to me, without getting too much into the definition of an icon, I would not call him an icon.
And you're right. I mean, we're going to be referencing the Horror Nights wiki, which is curated by the fandom. Does not mean it's the end-all be-all. It's not something officially put out by Universal Orlando. And we're going to stick to Universal Orlando for this, as there's Hollywood, Singapore have also used icons. Beijing's using Jack this year. And Chance. So just with those caveats and parameters in place, yes, according to this, Beetlejuice is the first icon, and I'm with Dave. I don't consider him an icon. He's more of a host, a marketable figurehead, but there's no interwoven backstory. There's nothing to say that he generated any of the fears here. He's just involved, and one of the easier, more digestible IPs instead, and he's a spokesperson, right? He can talk. He can actually engage and interact. You can't have
Pretty much he's just there. And if I'm not mistaken, that movie came out in 1989.
That sounds right. I don't have it top of mind.
I'm gonna look at it. So
okay. While you're looking at it, I mean, yes.
1988.
Okay, 88.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
1988.
And that was not a Universal film. They just had him there. 1991. They had him in 2 of the 20 shows featured in Fright Nights. The Beetlejuice Dead in Concert featuring the Ghostbusters, which was like more or less an earlier version of Beetlejuice's Rockin' Graveyard Review, right?
Which also was a more or less a daytime attraction at a point as well. I was not there. I did not get to see it, but I know they had a daytime attraction that was over by the New York Public Library, which if you're not familiar with Universal, if you walk down Production Central and through the New York area toward where the entrance for 2 haunted houses are, or is it 2 or 3? More or less 3. Past Rip Ride Rocket to the New York Public Library facade, which is the giant building at the very end of the main street you walk down when you get to Universal. They had a show where Beetlejuice more or less possessed the Ghostbusters and they danced and
sang, did parodied songs.
Yeah, so it sounds more or less like the daytime show they already had.
Right. And then the other one was Graveyard Tours over by where the Bates Motel used to reside. And then
which was over on the other side of Kid Zone.
Yep, by World Expo. And then you have the Blues Brothers working with them. Again, song and dance numbers. Nothing terribly scary. And to keep it focused and honed in on icon talk, Beetlejuice, while he was the host, ghost with the most, I'm going to say not an icon either.
Yeah.
And then following a line, and based off my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, we didn't see another alleged icon or figurehead till 95 at Halloween Horror Nights 5, where the name has already been changed, Bill and Ted's in full swing, and in 1995 we have a newcomer. Would you disagree?
Correct. I would agree 100%.
Okay.
The events from 92 to 94 were very similar, with a low number of haunted houses, more shows than anything. And we did not get another icon till Horror Nights in 95.
Correct. And that would be the Crypt Keeper of Tales from the Crypt fame.
Now, I wouldn't say this is very general knowledge, but I will say that this is more or less when you ask people who the first icon of Halloween Horror Nights was, they will say the Crypt Keeper, if they have any history of Horror Nights knowledge.
Well, let's say a little further back. A lot of people, I would argue, a lot of people would say Jack is the first one.
Correct, but people that have been going to the event for a long time and know the history of the event would refer to Crypt Keeper as the first icon. Now, the icon era and the first icon, that's 2 different things if you're thinking about it that way. A lot of
semantics here.
But if you go and ask somebody that's been attending the event since 91, they're going to tell you the first icon was the Crypt Keeper. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, they did use the Crypt Keeper in the commercial for the event that year. Not 100%, but
yeah, he had his own house.
Yep. So, yeah, about around the time when Tales from the Crypt was very popular. So,
and that was pretty much it. He was there. He was the marketable piece and figurehead. No canonical or lore really to why he was here. There is a sub-note that Artaru, or Fear, the icon from 2010, did choose him to helm one of the Horror Nights, and that was revealed back in 2010, and we did see the Crypt Keeper reappear in 2010 for the 20 Years of Fear Scare Zone, as well as the Icon's Halloween Horror Nights Scare Zone during Halloween Horror Nights 25 or 2015.
He was dressed in his director outfit and sitting in his director's chair there in the Scare Zone. And I know we're not really getting too in depth right now, but that will come with time as we go through this list, because there is a lot to talk about some of these other icons. So,
and now for you, Dave, does the Crypt Keeper, does he have that official icon aura to him? Does he feel like a true Horror Nights icon for you?
So to me, if I've got to have icon and sub icon, he goes into a sub icon category.
Now, okay,
where he's
so
more than
icon...
just a promotional figure, but he's not necessarily an. Actually, he had his own house. I'm going to go and say icon.
He had his own house in 95, the year he led. He had a second house in 96, and they had a parade.
Mm-hmm.
The Crypt Keepers Festival of the Dead.
I'm going to say he's the first official icon.
First official one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have your own terminology. I like what Universal has put out, as well as what has been universally adopted, right? We have icon, iconic character, and mascot. I have my own versions of what that means to me. I feel that the Crypt Keeper, while not an original concept or something created by Universal, I'm going to fall in line with you still. That he's the first official icon, and when you're in 1995 and you have a horror event that's not disgustingly packed and blowing up and breaking records as it should, and we love to see it. I mean, the first Fright Nights was only a couple bucks to get into, and then as it went along, it was only $10, $20 that add on Horror Nights to your day ticket.
Correct, and you could get heavy Coca-Cola discounts.
Yes, bring in your Coke tab right off the can, and you're good to go. With the Crypt Keeper coming out in 95 and that wonderful collaboration with the creators, he will be what I acknowledge as the first icon. I love it. He's on the map. I think that's really another telling point. How much in the marketing is he? I mean, Fright Nights was only 3 nights and did not have Beetlejuice anywhere. Had the classic monsters on most things, if anything.
Yep.
And then we have Crypt Keeper in 1995, which... not much more to go off of that. He had a couple houses more than Beetlejuice did. He had a whole parade, which was phenomenal to see. From there, we have another couple years without an official or notated icon. Here's where it gets maybe a little interesting on what is considered even an icon, a figurehead, a mascot, iconic character, or just the prominent monster. As based on the wiki here, in 1999, Halloween Horror Nights 9, Imhotep the Mummy was considered the icon.
Yes, and I will say this is the year where the park map had the mummy and bandages on the map. It's still a very cool T-shirt. If I'm not mistaken, am I correct on that? I'm pretty sure I'm correct on that.
The Halloween Horror Nights Last Gasp.
Yes. So while he did have his own house, this was one of our first instances of Universal using Synergy, because that is the year that the Brendan Fraser movie came out.
Yes.
And while they have Imhotep listed as the icon, I do not consider him an icon. I consider him a iconic figure, but this was all Synergy driven. It was not a character that controlled the event. It was not a character that was prominent besides a mummy-like character in bandages on the T-shirt. And to me, it's an iconic character, but it's not something that drove the event, which an icon should do.
That makes sense. And yes, you're correct. The park map has a picture of the mummy with its mouth agape. It's more of a cartoonish mummy than any of the mummies we've seen in either the 30s or the 90s film. And bandage in his mouth and a very great 1999 Last Gasp word art popping out.
Yeah, it's
I'm not sure what their involvement was beyond the house, right?
Yeah. I don't think there was much involvement beyond the house.
Let's see the storyline. Former high priest of the pharaoh that he killed. He was found breaking a sacred law in Humanapatra. He was sentenced to the
Hamunaptra.
Well, this is why you're the Egyptian consultant on the show.
Yes.
He was sentenced to the Hamdai, which granted him powers over sand, but the inability to pass on. He took over the 1999 Halloween Horror Nights event. So it's very much not involved. Does not really have a storyline. Just you took over the event. And the houses that year, they only had a couple. They had Doomsday, Insanity, The Mummy, Psycho, Through the Mind of Norman Bates, and Universal Creatures Features in 3D. Which really they only have The Mummy, and then they have in that house, I think they had both representations of The Mummy, both the 1932 and 1999, and they had Imhotep, the Vosloo version in the house, where he has this nice shaven chest prominently featured and making that big scream mouth.
The big mouth, the big gaping mouth. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. We have the Mummy, iconic character, not relegated to mascot. He's not a real icon. This was, hey, we're having some big thoughts here, and we have this big new Universal Monsters movie, which before 1999, Dave, can you recall a Universal Monsters film that was either trying to update the concept or bring it to more contemporary before the Brendan Fraser edition?
Yeah, I can think of one, and that would be Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992 with Keanu and what's his face, Gary Oldman. That's the only other one I can think of that in that time frame that really tried to update the Universal classic monsters, and I'm not even sure if that was a Universal release at that point.
I don't believe so.
I don't believe so either.
I don't believe so.
But yeah, I remember being a kid, and we owned that VHS, and I always used to look at it. So
look at this tape reel. Oh my god.
Other than that, I can't think of any other kind of updates to the classic monsters.
So this was their first chance to try to incorporate something media-wise, an original IP, into
that's not a word,
into the haunted event, and here it is. Which you think they'd be a bit more successful if they utilize the imagery from the Mummy movie, 1999 that is, or even 1932, and put it on the map or the marketing, not a cartoonish figure, which doesn't really elicit the horror aspect in the Halloween Horror Nights. I find it
let's be honest, the 1999 Brendan Fraser Mummy movies are some of the best ever, if not the best ever,
action piece
reboots of a classic Universal monster film.
I agree, and we look excitedly forward to the new Wolfman. Comes out this year, and that's,
yes, I saw they announced that December, correct?
Yeah, December, and then there's
it's a Blumhouse film.
Blumhouse with James Wan. I believe that, and they have something by the Lombard's bar where you can take a photo op.
Yes, they have a pop-up, a photo op. Yes, yep. Which, you know, if I have to be 100% honest, you know, I was actually a pretty good fan of the 2012. Oh wait, I'm sorry, that didn't come out in 2012. It was delayed. I can't remember what year it came out, but the Wolfman remake with Benicio del Toro.
Oh,
I actually enjoyed that movie. A lot of people, it gets so much hate.
Yep, 2010.
But I actually really enjoyed it.
2010.
I know we had that house in 2008, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But it was delayed. But I enjoy that movie more than most people did. So
I thought it was great. Verdict on the Mummy, really a marketing piece, if anything. Great that he was there and represented and being the main focal point. a classic monster does not make an icon.
I'd throw that under iconic character.
Iconic character. And I agree with that. Iconic character. And then we come to 2000, the year 2000, the millennia. And this is where things completely change and we start entering into what is now considered the icon era. And that will transition into the golden era, that I feel. And 2000 brings the very first fully original character and icon for Halloween Horror Nights, and that is Jack Schmidt, Jack the Clown, and his original iteration before any of the story pieces change his origins, and before he gets his remake redo in 2007 and then again in 2015. What do you have to say about Jack the Clown? So,
I've got some fun tidbits for Jack the Clown. This truly is the first icon year, where they've taken something and they've really given it a hierarchy over the whole event. When this character was being created, it was created by Michael Roddy.
Yep.
The first concept art is actually Jack the Clown painted over Michael Roddy's face, the first concept art of Jack the Clown. A gentleman, which I don't know if I'm going to drop names or anything like that. You can say it if you want, but I'm just going to go and leave that out. The first gentleman who played Jack the Clown, they actually had him do hot set takes out in City Walk and in the front entryway to Universal just to see how people would react to Jack the Clown before they ever made their decision on if he was going to be the icon or not. And people ate it up. People were terrified. So they went ahead and did all this testing on the character. And when it took off, they decided they were going to make this the overarching character, make the commercial all about him. They even took this character and sent him with USBs and media gifts to all the different news stations around downtown Orlando.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was gonna throw that in if you didn't.
Yep, and they had him deliver the media gifts to all these news stations, and actually even got the police called on him. When the police showed up, he stayed in character, and Universal Creative had to step in to keep him from getting arrested. So
Jack the Clown in chains. Shackle him up.
Very, very cool. There's even a very interesting photo of Jack the Clown riding the swan boats in what's that lake in downtown Orlando? Lake Eola. The first time they really took an icon and ran with it. You know, the commercial, you know, the famous tagline, you know, the commercial is Jack. Yeah. I'm sorry. The tagline just slipped my mind. Are you afraid of the dark? You don't know Jack.
You're afraid of the dark?
What was
That's
it?
That's a TV show.
I can't remember.
Don't be afraid.
I know. One of my favorite TV shows. It was...
it's time to think outside the box. You think you know me? You don't know Jack. Why the long faces? Right. You seem afraid of me. Ha ha ha. The moon's afraid of me. Your mama's so fat, I made beef jerky out of her.
I do remember the commercial vividly. I used to watch the commercials on repeat. A couple of kids get into a phone booth and they're taking pictures. You know, I said phone booth, photo booth is what I meant. Just one of your old generic photo booths. You know, yes. And then as the pictures are being taken, you know, you hear Jack's voice in the background. He pops out through the curtain and you see him in the background of their photos. And he scares them, and then the lights still are flashing, and then the pictures pop out the bottom drawer like they do in those old photo booths, and you see it, the photos, how it's the kids for the first couple photos, and then all of a sudden you see Jack, and then all of a sudden Jack's attacking them, and then, you know, just a classic, you know, just a classic. And one of the first real times our icon was tied into the event where, you know, we had a house deliberately for the icon, you know, I know we had the Crypt Keeper house, and we had an Emotep house, but to me, those seem like houses that were thought up afterward. This seems like a house they made for the icon, you know? So for me, this is the first real icon.
And that's veritable through a very extensive backstory. Now, Jack's story has been expanded upon, added to, and even retconned with, as recent as last year with 2023. His original presentation was more or less a demented clown who loves to wreak havoc and chaos, and here he is. After Universal bought the Jack-in-the-Box that held the literal Jack the Clown inside, and he said, all right, here I am, time to take this shit over. And he did indeed. His house was it the Anxiety? No, almost every house was more or less attributed to
tied
him.
Into him.
Yeah,
yes.
Anxiety in 3D virtual reality of the house that Jack built, total chaos, wander through a top secret underground military base where captured aliens are on the loose and thirsting for blood. Well, maybe not so much Jack on that one.
Well, it's called Total Chaos, and that they
Chaos,
do
'cause
loop that
he
in with
is
Jack in the
chaos.
future.
Yep. The Fear House, make your way through a carnival. Universal Classic Monster Mania, as they always do. They keep it something related to that. And then Dark Torment. After riding Earthquake, you'll descend into the labyrinths of a nightmarish underworld where hordes of evil demons torment you at every turn. And this being the first true icon, not every house always ties into it. There's usually, in the future, going forward from Jack, there would be underlying themes, tones, and little pieces that would tie everything together. Though with the first foray, pretty damn good. You had some throwbacks to earlier Fright Nights, such as the Midway or the Midway of the Bazaar. He had his own show, Jacked Up, and he had the whole Scare Zone clown attack. So he had something involved in every little piece, where he was a Scare Zone, he was a show, he had 1-2 houses for sure, and he had an extensive backstory that Universal personally, that Universal being the authority figure was personally involved. If you want to go like a WWE route, Universal, the authority, bought this new up-and-coming star by accident. And they brought him in, and he took it over. And he said, "This is my event." And he was in his traditional clown garb and youthful, and just ready to go. And at that point, they were already getting ready for next year, 2001, and getting him involved and alluding to, hey, there's another one of these fuckers. We have another clown in mind. And while this next entry for 2001 did not come to fruition as they originally intended over at Universal, as the icon for 2001 was going to be actually a little different, not necessarily completely related to Jack, correct?
Originally, he was not related to Jack, correct.
Okay.
Originally, he had a whole different last name, and was supposed to be a lot different. Yep.
Okay. So in 2001, it was supposed to be, Edgar Sawyer?
Edgar Sawyer.
Yeah.
Touching, yeah. So.
As this would become Eddie Schmidt, the brother of Jack the Clown, Jack Schmidt. And in 2001, it was supposed to be Edgar Sawyer, another another new true original icon. A burn victim who has an affinity for chainsaws, as he grew up loving old school horror movies, his favorite being Texas Chainsaw. And the Sawyer family is in Texas Chainsaw, and his main weapon of torture and destruction, not only for Leatherface and Texas Chainsaw, but Edgar's would be the chainsaw as well.
Yes. And I believe a lot of his icon backstory had to do with him growing up in a trailer park and used to be obsessed with horror movies, and his place ended up getting burned down, and he ended up trying to seek revenge on all those who wronged him.
That would be correct. He grew up in a trailer park after getting out of the orphanarium or whatever he was in. Here's the quote here. A group of other teens set a fire in the trailer park as a prank. not knowing he was inside, trapping him and disfiguring his face and hands with severe burns for life. Yeah, so that's why we have the visual of him. Since he wasn't used in 2001, I'll let Dave jump in and talk about that in a second. They ended up incorporating Eddie into Jack's backstory, as Jack did take over the 2001 event.
So he would have been incorporated into the same universe as Jack, but he wouldn't have been his brother. Originally,
Right.
there was supposed to be an opening ceremony, which I don't think we've talked about those yet. An opening ceremony is like an opening ceremony for the event where they do a little show and they kick off the night by doing a little show. Which there for a few years they got very in depth with those, and they had some pretty intricate opening ceremonies. Now it's more or less a 30-second little open the gates type deal. But the original planned opening ceremony was to have Jack the Clown ride in on like a parade float, and Eddie was supposed to come out and saw the head of Jack the Clown off and take over and make the event far worse than what Jack the Clown ever made it. This ended up getting scrapped, along with Eddie being the icon, because in 2001 we had the obviously infamous attack on 9/11, the World Trade Center event, September 11th, 2001. A lot of people with art and design and Horror Nights and marketing and Universal execs said, hey, we need to tone back this event. Eddie is supposed to be the goriest, most brutal person we've had
Very demented.
in many eon. Very demented, very slasher, brutal. We need to cut back on the blood, the gore, and the brutality, because people right now are, people were, they were mourning.
We
and
had
rightfully
a
so.
real life tragedy that
Yes.
they want to take away from, rightfully so. Yeah.
Yeah. But that being said, in a time like that, a lot of people said, hey, we needed that escape. We needed that, that fake gore, that fake violence. We need that escape. But, they didn't see it that way, and they did the right thing. Business, as a business, you have to be cognizant of world events around you. So that's when they changed the whole lineup. They changed all the blood at the event to green ooze.
Not a single drop seen at the event.
There was supposed to be a blood foam filled scare zone in the Kong attraction. That was taken out, and it was streets of ooze, and it was filled with green foam instead of blood. Jack the Clown takes back over the event to kind of shelf Eddie, and and I actually believe they had released marketing for Eddie before they took him out. So when Jack did come back,
because I have physical marketing pieces in my chest in the old Horror Nights dungeon here.
Yeah, and when Jack came back, he did say something about Eddie when he was taken back over the event, but that's when they tied Eddie into being Jack's brother, Yeah.
To further expand, Eddie's story was he was going to war against Jack with the chainsaw drill team, as his obsession with it. Eddie had it in for clowns due to his supernatural tendencies, which I don't think that was ever really expanded upon. Why Eddie's supernatural, or that maybe it was because Jack was supernatural. And just fuck. You remember that's just fuck you, fuck this.
Yeah.
So, and Eddie does come back. He does get his house. He only does get his own house 2 different times.
Well,
he gets
yeah,
Run,
and he was supposed to have the original iteration of Run, and if I'm not mistaken, that was over in the prop graveyard area over by the Universal Plaza stage.
Yeah, the boneyard.
The boneyard, and it was a chain link fence area, which ended up just being a area where Jack stood on a platform yelling insults at people as they went through the maze. So I do say maze, and I want to touch on this real quick because, You know, there's people arguing online about, is it maze or is it house? And everybody says, oh, no, it's house. Horror Nights Hollywood uses the term mazes. But years ago, Horror Nights Orlando did use the term maze, and I quote TJ Manarino, which is a creative director for Universal, in saying we call it a maze because we don't want you to know which way you're going, and we don't want you to feel like you know the way out.
Mm-hmm.
So they're always mazes to me. Or house. I really don't care. I call them houses too. So
Interchangeable.
But anyway,
terms.
yeah, it's colloquial. Anyway, sorry
the
to
Run
go
House
kind of off
did
track
exist
there,
in 2001. They just took everything out and took Eddie out. He did get his own proper house two times forward in 2006 and then 2015, both being sequels.
And he was also seen in 2010 in the Scare Zone.
Shadows of the Past, right?
He was actually, I think he was in the Icon Scare Zone.
Oh, sorry, Fear Revealed. Yes.
He was in Fear Revealed. And my God, they used the most testosterone up men to play him that year. Giant, massive men with chainsaws running around, you know, because the media for Eddie was, he was not, you know, he was muscular, but he was not,
he was not jacked, dude.
He was not Theor Borgson from Game of Thrones jacked.
Borgstein.
The guy, the mountain from Game of Thrones.
Oh no.
But yeah, would have been a very cool event. Unfortunately, it got scrapped due to 9/11. And that is not the last time we will talk about an icon being scrapped due to unfortunate instances. We're about to move on to the next one.
Does Eddie get you a full icon status?
I'm going to create a new category. He's more than an iconic. He's more than an iconic figure, less than an icon. I'd hate to just lump Eddie in the same category as, you know, Beetlejuice or, you know, the Crypt Keeper,
He's
Emotep.
an original creation, has a great backstory that's been really fleshed out as the years have gone on.
And he has been used as the years have gone on. If you asked me before 2010, I would say no, he's not an icon.
I agree with this already.
But if you ask me post 2010, I'm going to say yes, he is an icon.
Okay. I think that's fair.
Actually, no, he's a little less than an icon, a little more than an iconic figure. I don't know what you want to call that, but he's in between the two. I'm going to call him a lost icon.
Oh, daddy, I'm a sub icon.
I'm going to refer to him as a lost icon.
A lost icon. All right, fair. He hasn't had a proper year focused entirely on him yet. He has appeared several times since and still has a pretty robust backstory. Icon light, maybe.
Yeah, icon light. We'll go with that.
And with the success of Jack, and now we're in 2002, 2 years in a row with Jack, it's time that Universal's been cooking up some more of this icon, the iconic timeline. And we're going to bring into play. Should we bring in the original concepted icon who was supposed to be in charge, or what we ended up getting?
Let's go chronologically and scoot through it chronologically of how things happened. I'll touch on the first person, and you can touch on the second person being your favorite.
Yes.
So in 2002, we got Islands of Fear.
First
the
time
original
at IOA.
Yep. The original icon was supposed to be a little girl named Cindy, with originally not having a last name.
Mm-hmm.
She was actually, it may have been the same at that point, but it was a little girl who was supposed to have taken over Islands of Adventure, and they were all supposed to be her toys, and she was letting her playthings go, creating havoc over all the different storybook characters of Islands of Adventure. Because if you're not familiar, Islands of Adventure, it's all based on storybook characters, whether it be Sinbad, Seuss Landing, Comic Strip Cafe, Marvel Superhero Island, Jurassic Park. It's all based on storybook characters.
Right.
And she was supposed to be taking over. Unfortunately, in 2002, there was a bad rash of child kidnappings in the greater Orlando area. Universal again said, hey, due to all these child kidnappings, we don't want to seem in poor taste by putting a child as an icon. So at that point, the icon was scrapped, and it did bring along an amazing event because that happened. And that moved the event over to
what would become the second true and fully institutionalized, oh my god, and fleshed out character being the Caretaker. Your time has come. The Caretaker would be your icon over the Islands of Fear. And he has another, again, extensive backstory. This is where I really find myself categorizing these people as icons. Mm-hmm. And for the Caretaker, I mean, he's pretty self-explanatory. He was a caretaker, became a surgeon, and then the Caretaker name became when he switched over to becoming a mortician and residing over a mortuary, being the caretaker and taking care to the dead bodies. And through that, he became very enamored with death and how do people's what was the failure points in causing people's death. And while performing surgeries, he became very interested in that, and then the mortician side was investigating why death happens. How did the death occur? What could have been prevented or accelerated the death? And this obsession really clouded his mind, became very, very crazed, and ended up committing experiments on living people to witness that snap point of death and to help him understand. And not only was he crazed, the surrounding family members and extended family members, being the assistants and nurses at either the hospital or mortuary, end up becoming cannibals. And it gets really fucked up real quick, where he's doing these crazy experiments on living people without anesthesia, and his assistants are taking the body parts back home or utilize them in the mortuary to recreate parties or death day parties. It's like an adult haunted mansion where it's not so much ghosts, it's dead, gruesome, hacked up body parts and the insano people working at the joint, putting them in the positions to recreate the party. And this being my first year as a guest coming to Halloween Horror Nights, I just became, oh man, this guy's so fucking cool. And he is. He looks really, really good look. He made him look really, really good and creepy, and he has this sunken in face and long, wiry hair with a top hat and a mortician's outfit, and he carries these big giant shears to help chop up the bodies. Mm-hmm. And his house was highly regarded. It's why it's been back more. It's been 3 times it's come back, and he's right there with Jack as one of the most recognized individuals. So true icon status, the Caretaker, full name Dr. Albert Kane. This is my guy. And I wish we got another house already with him. He was actually rumored to come back and be the icon, not too long ago. 2018 or 2019, I believe.
Yeah, it was rumored, and it would have been great. That's a year I wish I could have attended. I remember in 2002 watching the Travel Channel, and actually it may have been the following year that I saw this, but I remember watching The Art of the Scare, which is a Travel Channel documentary. Mm-hmm. A Travel Channel documentary. Yeah. And it was all about that year. And that's what made me obsessed with Halloween Horror Nights, is seeing that documentary. So,
and this is, correct me, this is where they filmed multiple commercials and little vignettes incorporating the Caretaker figure and releasing that to have, the marketing push for him,
Yes. Yeah. So they had that.
A lot of good stuff. These are scary. These are scary commercials playing on TV.
More so. I'd say more so than next year, but yes, this year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This was the ramp up to 2003, which we can easily transition over to that right now.
Yeah. Let's cut a rug here and let's talk Cindy,
Oh, okay.
official icon or not. Where do you link Cindy? Because this is not the only time
sub icon. Like Eddie.
she's got to because this is not the only time she was scrapped, and we'll get into that a little later on.
But she is seen. I mean, the caretaker's house, Scream House. Everywhere you see him is where Cindy was supposed to be.
Which
there's Cindy you do see Cindy in the 2006 house, Scream House Resurrection.
She also gets her own house in 2010.
The one and only time, Orphanage.
Which it goes back and forth. Is she still in lore Albert Kane's daughter, or is that just a lost thing of the past?
She is still his daughter.
Okay. Some of these icons get a little convoluted with their backstories, retcons.
Don't talk to me about fucking Jack and Oddfellow. You want to talk about convoluted? But she officially became known as Albert Kane, the caretaker's daughter, in 2006, as Scream House Resurrection was the storyline of the caretaker trying to resurrect his daughter. She was meant to be the icon for 2010, 20 Years of Fear, but was later scrapped. She got her own house, was tied into the schoolhouse aspect and the school, and we ended up ultimately getting Fear. Scream House Revisited. In the kitchen scene, this is in 2003, a young girl who resembles Cindy is caged under the kitchen counters with her brother. Not official. Does resemble Cindy. There's no canonical true lore saying that the caretaker has a son, though. But for me, Cindy continues to reside in that sub-icon. Almost an icon, not an iconic character or a mascot, but she is right there with Eddie, basically in the same playing field. However, Eddie did get two different houses with his name, or with his incorporation to it, while she's had the one. And that's kind of been it since then. And she only pops up during anniversary years at this point.
Yeah.
Except in she did. That is one. She was in the Welcome to Scary Horror in the Heartland house. But that's not a Cindy house. So, are we good on 2002?
Yeah, I think we're good on 2002.
Okay, that brings us up to 2003. We're well into the iconic years. We've had great success with Jack, The Caretaker, another slam dunk. Let's keep going, we say. We got some more good stuff in the tank. And in 2003, still in Islands of Adventure, Universal decides to bring in Paulo Ravinsky, the main event icon known as the Director.
Yes, I believe Paulo Ravinsky was used on both coasts in this instance, or was that... I believe he was using both... I know we're not talking both coasts, but I believe he was using both coasts. The commercials were filmed in Hollywood, and the gentleman who filmed the commercials did not even know how popular he was in that time frame. This is they use the director, and this is, again, back before Horror Nights was very, we got to pay for our IPs. We have to, make sure we do not copyright anything, because back then the event's still growing. They, as Bill said before, the Caretaker had many vignettes for TV. This was huge with the director. I think there were like
truly scary stuff.
Four different cuts of him killing people, in different ways. Little 15-second vignettes of him torturing people and killing people in different ways. Paulo Ravinsky, his whole backstory is he's a director, but he's a director of snuff films.
Yes.
He wants people to actually suffer, so he gets the true fear documented on camera. Of one of the most famous quotes from Paulo Ravinsky is, "Pain is temporary, film is forever." So he was very much a snuff film just to get the best picture he could on camera. But another way of bringing in classic movies to Horror Nights.
Right, and his icon house was the All Night Die-In, which was a mashup anthology house, taking, again, not needing or really skirting the line on IP rights, but taking some classic horror characters and mashing them up into the same house, where each room or scene would be a different classic slasher or monster.
It was back in the day when they could have the classic slasher or monster, but not call them the classic slasher or monster. You know?
Right.
One of those, oh, this is this, but it's not, you know?
Yeah, and in the first one they had Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, Freddy Krueger, and Leatherface. And if you're looking at the wiki, it'll all be quotations unofficially inside the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. As there was no rights paid for, and they were just kind of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I for me, of course, director is another golden icon. Love him a lot. He's real sick guy, crazed motherfucker. He's really a temperament of sacrifice, and he really pushes for that, like you said, Dave, a true and honest piece of what it means to be suffered or to sacrifice, and he will do nothing to ensure you sacrifice everything for his work.
Yes.
So director, very cool. I recall a lot of outcry when his vignettes and commercials came out. I was like, holy shit, you're playing this at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the afternoon? And my kids
it wasn't just like our generic BS commercials we get nowadays. It was truly a 15-second horror film on cable TV.
Yeah. A lot of blood. They were not holding back in 2003.
Nope. And that's, unless you have anything else on the director, that's going to bring us to 2004, which
is a maybe. Not for me.
To me,
it's not for me.
To me, in 2004, it is straight up not even an iconic character. It is a what's the lowest
marketing insert.
It's a marketing insert.
Yeah, that will resonate with you.
It's the asylum patient. It's the patient you see in the commercials. It's the patient you see on the brochure. And actually, the commercial, he wasn't even prominent in the commercial, because the commercial in 2004 is the gentleman walking from white medical room to white medical room, and he can't escape. He's in a time loop of medical rooms. You leave one door and you enter into the same medical room, and there's different patients or different creepy things in each room, all white asylum rooms. There's not much to touch on.
He's an original character. I think he looks way better in the marketing, physical pieces like the inserts and the map. He looks really good there, like really kind of scary looking. The commercial piece. It's just a guy in a straitjacket.
Yeah. So with that being said, nothing much else to say on that.
No, that's a mascot for sure, right?
Yeah, mascot. That's what I was looking for. That's what I was looking for.
This guy represents the event. 2004 was the what's your breaking point was the tagline. It was was the one and only year where they let you go back and forth between the Islands Adventure and Universal Studios. It was the only 2-park year. Which maybe that's why they felt they didn't need an icon, or that this was enough, because hey, you get to go to 2 different parks with one Horror Nights ticket.
Was 2005 both parks, or was that just
Islands again?
Islands Adventure.
04
okay,
is the only time to ever have both parks.
05 was just Islands. Okay, yeah. Speaking of 05, let's get into 05, which this is a convoluted cluster of icon bullshit.
Yeah, because we have 2.
We have 1, but we have 2.
We have 1, but we have 2. I think
that's the best way of saying it. So in Halloween Horror Nights Tales of Terror in 2005, we were supposed to get an icon, and the whole event was fleshed out this way. The Terror Queen was supposed to take over Islands of Adventure, and Terra Cruentus comes every
15 years.
15 years? Every 15 years.
Every 15.
And there was a whole long, drawn-out process and storyline to this icon, and it was beautiful, and, you know, it was all about the Terror Queen sacrificing people, and, you know, all the houses were tied in.
Harvesting their blood to power her machines.
And all the houses were tied in. Everything was tied in. But, unfortunately, an average fan is not going to know that. An average fan is not going to know that because the commercial for that year involved a little old lady telling a story to a gentleman who was sweating and laying on a bed of needles. Eventually, a large weight was cut, and a large weight fell on top of the old man, the man who was sweating, who was laying on a bed of needles. If I can paint a picture better, it's a old nice lady reading a story about stories and fairy tales, and
your old grandmother type figure reading a bedtime
and
story.
This ended up being Elsa Strict, the storyteller, as most would know her.
Yep.
The reason we see her is because marketing thought Terra Cruentus and Terror Queen was too much to take in for your average park goer, and they did not want people to be confused. So they threw in this generic marketing driven icon to tie the event together for people that didn't know any better. While the Terror Queen still showed up at the event, and they still had motorcycles and Terra Cruentus, and they just used the storyteller as marketing.
Right, to be the four-figure, and it ended up being that Terra Cruentus was a book that the storyteller wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't really remove anything from the Terror Queen or Terra Cruentus. We just have what is now a shoehorned main icon because the marketing team.
Well, to me, it does remove stuff from Terror Queen because, you know, here, let's look at it this way. Commercials and marketing, if you push the director in commercials and marketing, people are going to know who the director is. If you have this whole event backstory on the Terror Queen, but you have a storyteller as the person who's driven in commercials and marketing, your average person who doesn't go on the websites months beforehand is not going to know who the hell the Terror Queen is.
Right.
They're going to see the storyteller, and that's all they're going to see. Which I believe that the storyteller was only in a small portion of a house. She was in an attic scene of
Where Evil
I can't remember what house it was.
Where Evil Hides.
Where Evil Hides. She was only in a small portion of one haunted house.
Right, and Where Evil Hides was preying on the particular fear of childhood fears, such as what's lurking in my closet, what's under the bed. The darkness is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just sitting there in the closet.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate as they incorporate this gigantic backstory, which would take a whole episode on its own to go through the Terra Cruentus and every piece of it. Super good year, I would say, between the different houses and the scare zones, and you had the different sections of it. Like, there's a whole Goblin's World, there's a whole, like, living tree area, which was all Terra Cruentus and part of the Terror Queen, and she rode this badass motorcycle, and because of the interpreted lack of understanding or cohesion, the storyteller was shoved in as well.
Because of marketing thinking we were dumbasses and wouldn't follow the event.
They saw the success of the previous icon, said, why don't we just do a regular one again instead of making this super well detailed and fleshed out world where it all was cohesive. And this was probably the first fully fledged year where it was all a unified and cohesive event. But then we got the storyteller, and we didn't get any backstory. We don't have any real lore until actually 2006, which is wild that you didn't get anything until the year after the fact.
Correct, and the lore has changed since then as well in 2015.
Yep.
I'm sorry. No.
2010?
2021 is when we actually got new update to Elsa Strict.
We got a
2021.
little bit more in 2010.
Not much.
She's the totem of legend.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we really got an update to her actual character in 2021. So,
Right.
but we'll get there.
Right. I mean, the storyteller transported guests into the landscape of her newest story, Terra Quentis. And then it jumps into the Terra Queen's story. And that's really it. Just storytellers here. The storyteller presents Terra Queen. And ultimately, Terra Queen was, as with this lore, and only the diehard sicko wild men out there will say it, and I feel this very vehemently. Terra Quentis happens every 15 years. In Horror Nights 30, it's the second happening, she was relegated to a scare zone, and it just was not as good. Should have been the whole event again.
With a terrible mask.
With a terrible mask. Though that will wrap it up there. Okay, so before we do that, Storyteller and Terra Queen, where do they fall in your titlings and attributions? Where do you attribute them in the icon realm?
So the Storyteller will fall under main icon for me.
I think we have to
just
give
because,
it to her.
Just because the commercials, the media,
The backstory,
the lasting lore. Yeah, the lasting lore of her. The Terra Queen, unfortunately, I'm going to consider her on the same level as Eddie and Cindy, a lost icon.
Oh, man.
She did not get the push she deserved. I will guarantee you right now, if I went and found somebody who has followed the event but not followed the event and said, who's the storyteller, they'd be able to tell me. But if I said, who is the Terror Queen, most of them would be like, what's the Terror Queen?
Yeah, very hard to come across it. I agree with you, the storyteller. I feel like I have to give it to her, as much as she's my least favorite official icon. And she gets that title because of the marketing, because of the storyline that she's acknowledged and given all this stuff.
She is my least favorite icon, my favorite commercial, though.
Does have a damn good
Besides,
commercial.
Probably 2007, she's my favorite commercial.
7 does have a good commercial. 2008 has a good commercial. 2008 also a lot of blowback.
I still think 2006 was... Or, I'm sorry, 2005 was one of my favorite commercials.
Mm-hmm. And then Terror Queen for me, I would actually put her down the mascot. Because she did not... She got shoved out of her own event, and then in the... Every 15 years, the Terror Queen returns, because on the last night of Horror Nights in 2005, the Terror Queen herself is sacrificed as a part of the closing. And every 15 years she returns, and then in what was supposed to be the 15th year, she was in a scare zone. This time in her event, she barely returned.
Yeah,
and no one knew who she was.
It was pure fan homage, but that's it.
So she's at this point a mascot, and even if you bring her back for the 45th event, I just animated her whole thing. Maybe then we could turn this corner. However, at the moment, she is a mascot for me.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Because she's so cool. She really is really cool. After 2005, we had the 2006, which was an unofficial anniversary year, with the Sweet 16, which brought back the 4 now what are considered the gold icons: Caretaker, Director, Jack, and Storyteller. And this was under the guise of Darkness from the movie Legend, resurrecting the icons to a current day and bringing them forward. Is there anything further we need to talk about? Do you consider Darkness an icon?
No, I don't. It's just Tim Curry's character. I mean, the only thing I could talk about with this is the opening ceremony where Darkness comes up on his throne, and then each of the characters recreates one of their iconic kills. That's about it.
The Arrival, I believe.
The Arrival is the name of the ceremony, yes. Which I believe they did a couple times throughout the night, but if I'm not mistaken. But other than that, no. There's not much to talk about. They each had their own house. They were each brought back. Horror Comes Home, Sweet 16. It was the first year back in strictly Universal since 2001. So,
and there it remains.
Mm-hmm.
The only other poignant piece I want to talk about is in 2006, every house was a sequel, prequel, or continuation of a previous house at the event.
Correct. Scream House, Resurrection.
Yes.
What
was it?
Yeah. Psychoscarapy.
Psychoscarapy, yes. Dungeon of Terror Retold.
Which was the Storytellers.
Yep, All Night
and
Dying.
then All Night Dying
Take
2. Yep.
And so, I mean, there was definitely the icons returned. And that was kind of it. And then in 2007, this is where we get the next piece of backstory for Jack the Clown.
Mm-hmm.
With the Carnival of Carnage.
Yep.
And then you have what could be considered as they were very prominently displayed in marketing and were part of Jack's, heavies, toughs, captains, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, and Leatherface. However, those are not icons. Definitely iconic characters and pieces we've borrowed from other IPs. However, an icon they do not make.
Well, I will say we did see one icon that year as well that we have not touched on yet. That was in 2007. That was Chance's first year at the event. She was in she was in Jack's show called the Carnival of Carnage. It was very similar to the Carnival of Carnage that we got in 2015, where Jack is killing people, aka doing magic tricks to make people look like they're dying. And she was a very bullied Harlequin type character in this event, in this show. Allegedly, she started out as being a porcelain doll of Jack that Jack brought to life. But she is an assistant of Jack in that show.
That's coming back to me now, yes.
Yep.
Super good year. Loved this this year. The build-up on the website was great. And then
the opening ceremony was great.
Yes, everything was really... And they had a full carnival built outside the arches.
Mm-hmm.
And then
one of the last times we actually had a great entrance to the event.
Just medallions and fences.
Mm-hmm.
This is the full return of Jack. He is now the leader of the traveling Carnival of Carnage, and he's brought his attractions to Universal Orlando for you to experience and be part of. So for this, now what was the particular backstory before Oddfellow of why he's in charge of a carnival now?
So I know the story with Oddfellow. I don't know what his backstory was before this year, and I'm not sure that they touched too much on his backstory in 2000.
You just made a logical continuation in your head. Well, it makes sense that, this insane, chaotic clown took over a carnival and is now the ringmaster. Yeah.
And well, in 2007, that's when they really started the Jack took over Oddfellow's carnival, which Oddfellow was a character back in 2007. And I do believe they also had the lore that we received last year with Oddfellow catching Jack doing mischievous things, killing kids, and Oddfellow in turn got into a fight with Jack, and Jack took over the carnival.
Yeah, which we will expand upon, and when we get to Oddfellow, which is not till 2023, 16 years later?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the moment, it's just, hey, Jack's here. He's now in charge of a carnival. He got his first remake. He got his makeover where he has he took off his white clown outfit and now has his carnival pants. Ringmaster pants and the Ringmaster red jacket, which he looks pretty snazzy in. And this was an IP heavy year where he brings his carnival to you. Of course, you have his house in Jack's Funhouse and Clownavision, which was 3D, but everything else, most of them were IPs at this point. The Thing, super good Thing house in 07. Friday the 13th, yes. Camp Blood. Texas
the Thing Assimilation, which was a continuation to the 1980s Thing.
Yeah, you see McCready and Childs in cryopods that they were being saved.
Mm-hmm.
Your Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw, Nightmare on Elm Street, Dead Silence, which, if you don't recall, was that old possessed puppet movie from James Wan. And then your originals were Psychoscarapy, The Jack House, and then a continuation of Vampire. So it was a really neat year, not so much heavy on the story, but man, was it really good build up. The website was great. As the weeks went on, the carnival expanded, and then here's Jack. With that is your 2007 event, and your icon being the newly ordained and self-anointed Ringmaster Jack the Clown. And as we get into now what is, we're kind of in the golden years already. I mean, where would you say the golden years start as far as icons are concerned? We have the iconic years where they are being created and formed. 2016, we had a best, a reconfiguring, and then 07, Jack's back, he's in charge. We're not done making new icons.
No. I'd say the icon era for sure starts in 2000. I mean, you have to say it starts in 2000. How
far does it go?
Even though I would say Jack the Icon in 2000 is still a lower level icon because it really expands. The icons get a lot more as you go on, and Jack gets a lot more as you go on. But
specifically, as we're talking about 07, Jack is now top dog and making moves. However, in 08, we get a new one. In 09, we get a new one. In 2010, we get a new one. In 2011, we get a new one.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's plenty more. Plus, after the fact, Walking Dead years, oh God, not so good.
Terrible.
Yeah. I see a lot of debatable icons in here, and then 2015, another anniversary, and then we see at this point, okay, we're really gonna start leaning into these anniversary events, and you can almost assuredly bet on icons returning. Oh, there's far more conversation to be had. We're coming up on the time here.
Yeah. And not only is it a return, it's an expansion as well.
Yeah. And I do like what they're doing with most of the icons as far as the storyline is concerned, and how they're very much involved with Halloween Horror Nights, the canonical sense of it, and what their input, their physical attendance of the event means to it. That said, I think we're going to wrap up here, Dave. This is going to be a two-parter, which is our first ever, instead of a direct continuation. As we're not doing a Wall of Shame, we're not doing Easter egg tonight. Before we wrap up, though, for the icons, sub-icons, mascots, and so on that we've talked about so far, so from 1991 to 2007, give me your top 1, top 2, top 3. Your favorites.
Oh, you're really kind of twisting my arm here because, you know,
we haven't even got to some of the best ones yet, though.
It's always been so hard. For what we've talked about so far, I've got to go with you. I've got to be caretaker guy first.
Ooh. Easy dub. Well, you expand a little bit on why he is your favorite from the ones we've talked about.
Just because he's such an original story. You know, everybody and their mother has done clowns at their Halloween events.
Oh yeah, easy enough. Clowns are inherently scary, right?
Now, Jack is unanimously one of the favorites, and I like to be a little bit different. And you know, the caretaker, just the fear of death, the fear of the unknown, you know, is more terrifying to me than anything else. And I believe that the caretaker really falls into that category more than any of the other ones.
Oh, he loves you. He wants you to die.
You know, and then my second, you know, I'd have to give it to Jack, you know. I'd have to say Jack's the second, just because, not necessarily because of his backstory and because of his events, but because the person who has played Jack has really made such a character.
Very important point. While
he
rare
has,
for you and I to have a personal interaction multiple times with this performer, does not detract from it. I one of my favorite moments with this Jack performer was when I was at UCF, the University of Central Florida, and the Red Cross, maybe, they were doing a blood drive, and they had Jack the Clown come out there and try to get people to come. He's like, "I need your blood," screaming at them from the red bus.
You know, so with Jack the Clown, I'm friends with people who have played his character and got special notes from him on how to play the character. I have had drinks with him and Dr. Jimmy, who was supposed to be on here with us tonight, at bars at Universal, and just talked to him. He, you know, it could be very easy to play a creepy clown. I've worked at haunts in the past, and playing a creepy clown is easy. But when you can take that character and make it something that fits you alone, you've done something special. And that's what he does with that character. He takes that character and gives it a whole secondary and third personality. You know, he makes it so much different than, you know, anybody could have put that makeup on and just been creepy.
Right.
But he gives that character so many mannerisms and so many personality traits that make that character so much more than what it could have been. So Jack's my second.
And then, do you have a third, or you're good with those ones?
No, I'm not going to pick between the director and storyteller.
Oh, really? You can I mean, you can pick the sub icons, you can pick the mascots, you can pick the lost icons, whatever.
Lil Boo.
I'm
just kidding. I fucking hate Lil Boo.
We're not even considered in any of those.
It's a piece of shit.
Whoa, very popular though. Very popular. The little shoulder Boo is pretty neat this year, I'd say. No,
it's terrible. Get it out.
Get it out.
Bye.
You heard him.
All right. So, Bill, would you like to give me your top three?
Dr. Albert King. My first event, first year ever going, easy pick. I love the carnage and the severity and the absolute, you know, lack of regard to people's mortality. He's such a degenerate, terrible person. And then in his houses, you get to see that great spine rip scene. Second, there's not a whole lot in this first half, but director's gonna be my second. It was my second year going. I really didn't even know who Jack the Clown was yet, and I have ingrained in my brain those director vignettes in the commercials. They're like, oh fuck, this is some scary stuff. He's gonna be there. It's no good. You don't want to be near this guy. And then after that, I'm gonna give it to Terror Queen, mascot, over the storyteller and everyone else. She's really cool. Has a great storyline. Has a great design. And should have been way more than what she ended up getting, which is frustrating to say. So that's where she's at for me. So for the ones we've talked about, Jack's not even in my top three. That's not to be contrarian.
No. I don't disagree with you. They're also, to be honest with you, they're also interchangeable. You know, it's very hard to make a list.
I feel like we've been over inundated with Jack, and that's why I don't care for him so much these days.
And it all depends on what you're in the mood for as well.
Right, he's been there.
It depends on what you're in the mood for as well.
In some fashion every year since 2000, and I don't need it. I don't dislike the performers who've portrayed Jack. I love them. They're so great. They're so kind and generous to us. But that's where I'm landing. Is caretaker,
I agree
director, and then Terror Queen.
I agree with you.
So that's going to be part 1 for an Icons in Review. A little dissertation and conversation on the Horror Nights icons. Ideally, we get Dr. Jimmy in next time. There might be a break between part 1 and part 2 of the icon conversation, but be sure we will finish this and we'll get caught up. And we'll definitely be talking about the mascots from 2024, Sinister and Surreal. I don't know if you disagree on that title, though, for them, Dave, but Sinister and Surreal are going to be
absolutely
mascots.
At the most mascots, yes.
At the most.
I'm good with mascots. I'll tell you what, Bill, I'm assuming you're going to do an episode here in the next week or so that I'm going to bow out of because I'm going to avoid spoilers. But
I'm sure, yes, Brennan and I will put together something about a review of the Halloween Horror Nights event, as we will both be there on opening night, August 30th, doing Stay and Scream and doing Open to Close. We'll be there every single day. Friday,
next year, hopefully we can receive media, and nevertheless, even if we don't receive media, I'm hoping to make it out first night next year with you, so we can really get a good review in for the podcast.
Perfect. And that will be our plan. All right, folks, thank you all so much for listening. We're going to wrap it up here for part 1 on a Horror Nights review of the icons in Orlando. And we'll see you. Let
me just say, if you have a favorite icon out of what we've talked about so far, if you feel like we've missed something, feel free to call and leave us a voicemail at 407-490-2220. 407-490-2220. We'd love to hear from you. Send us a text or leave us a voicemail. Tell us about your favorite icon and why they're your favorite icon, of the ones we've talked about so far. We'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. Well said, Dave. Send in those voice messages. Send in those texts. We'd love to hear it. Send in your emails as well, parktalkradio@gmail.com. And we'll see you in the Horror Nights fog.